Hey everyone, it's been a long time coming. I'm in the studio with, I'm just going to say this. I apologize. I apologize to my future co host later, but you happen to be one of my favorite. Yes,
Thank
you
you.
have, yeah, you happy. You're very welcome. You happen to be one of my favorite. And the reason why I say this is because your story is interesting. And before we dive into your story, I am your host, Miss Wedeh Guar. And today's episode, I'm not going to just go ahead and say it yet. You will get the title of today's episode once you listen to the episode, because I will give you the title at the end, because I want you to get a visual, like a visual of her story, but at the same time, soak up her transformation, but yet learn from something. I would love for you to please give our audience, I say our now because you're part of the family. So,
Thank
welcome.
you.
Please give a
Thank
brief
you.
intro about yourself.
Yes, my name is Haynes, and I am a success coach, and I specialize in open adoption for single women in their 40s and 50s, helping them become mothers through adoption, and then continuing that relationship to broaden it to include the birth family so that it's truly open, truly healthy, and uplifting for what I call the adoption triad, which is the adoptive parent, the birth parent, and the child. And at the core, this is all for the betterment of the child's well-being mentally and emotionally and spiritually.
Did you guys hear that? Let me get my life together first. It's like I just got sucked up in your intro. But when people hear the word single parent, so every time a person hear the word single parent, it drives this societal stigma, right? That is, how can I say this? So it leads to a misconception, which can sometimes lead to unfair judgment and stereotypes. For example, when they hear the word single parent, they think about financial instability, they think about poor relationship chores, career sacrifices, dependent on others. But in your situation, your parenting journey happens to be so different. Can you tell me a bit about how you became a single mother?
Yes. So I actually never thought I'd be a single mother. I don't think many women think, oh, yeah, that's what I'm going to be when I grow up. I'm going to be a single mother. It just so happened that my dating life didn't coincide with my fertility life to have me find the right person to marry, to have children with. And so I found myself in my 40s single
Mhm.
and without anyone in a relationship with somebody that would bring me to a place of being married in enough time to still be fertile. And so I had to make a decision. Do I live the rest of my life without having this incredible dream of mine come true? Or do I see how I can make it happen? And so, after a lot of conversations with myself, conversations with God, I realized that I absolutely wanted this dream to come true and I had the means to do it. And I started out with fertility, which is
Mhm.
incredibly expensive. Thankfully, I had the
Right.
funds. In my real estate career had made it possible for me to go that route. But after 5 IUIs and 2 IVF treatments that failed, I realized it was a money pit. I can continue chasing this dream,
Mhm.
losing thousands of dollars, or I can find another way where my dreams could be realized. And for me, that was adoption. And because as I went through my journey, I realized fertility was an if, right? There's so many factors that have to come into play at the right moment for you to become pregnant.
Right.
It's physically exhausting. It's hard on your body with hormones. There's an up and down emotionally of looking at a failed pregnancy test. And so I realized, okay, if fertility treatments is an if, then adoption is a when, because I had seen it profiled for me with other people. And then I went through the whole journey and it happened at a faster rate than what I was told was the norm as a Black single woman. And it became, yeah, you're right. Fertility is an if, but adoption is
The
just a
when.
when.
Wow.
And
So
my
I'm
when came.
curious to know, right. So I'm curious to know when you said that your adoption was on a waiting list. How long was their waiting list?
No, there wasn't necessarily a waiting list. I was just told that my chances of being picked by a mom, a birth mom, was
Mhm,
going to be lower because one, I was a single woman, and two, I was
mhm,
a Black single woman, right? And there's a perception that everybody's going to choose a family that has a mother and father. But that's not necessarily true. And especially in Black communities where there are already single mothers at the head of households, it's not unusual for a birth mother to go, yeah, you know what? Even though I'm in this particular situation, I know single women who have raised children very wonderfully by themselves. So it's not a foreign concept that they would actually choose
right.
a single woman, a Black single woman for their child.
I'm also curious to know, was your journey worth the wait?
Absolutely, without a
Love it.
shadow of a doubt.
I love it.
I mean, I can't even imagine. That time of life was incredibly difficult for me.
Mhm,
I lost my mother at the beginning of the year in February, and I had the expectation, okay, we'll wait a year and a half before somebody chooses me. But it didn't take that long. It took a lot less time. So I ended up being a mother 10 months after my mother's passing. And so she and I were so incredibly close. I'm an
mhm.
only child, a single mother. Um, and we
And
just
look at
had
how
this
you turned
incredible.
out.
Thank you. Right. And she was a great model for me. And it wasn't her life goal to be single either. She had to
Right,
divorce my father. There's all these stories that come along with every single person, right? And it's
right.
how you deal with it, what you make of it, and what the character of that parent is and what they want for their child. But I found myself in one of the most challenging years of my life, having lost her. And then I found myself at the end of the year at one of the most gratifying and life affirming times in being in the delivery room
Mhm.
watching my daughter be born. And so, it was the worst of times and it was the best of
Best of
times.
time.
And it has shaped itself so incredibly by who has been chosen as her godparents and how even at her dedication at church, those godparents love the church so much they started becoming members of the church and they're still there. It's the ripple effect to
Yeah.
the fact that I was able to establish a relationship with her birth mother and we're still in contact. We even spoke today because my daughter's birthday was just 2 days ago. And so from there, I can even say how she has developed a relationship with her birth mother and how it's affected my career. I was a really top producing real estate agent and I saw what I experienced. I wanted other single women who were at that age and that time of life where they had to
Mhm.
decide what's my next step of this dream of mine? Do I give it up forever and just say I missed it? My window of time passed? Or can I make this into a coaching and a career where
Right.
other women can feel so fulfilled by their own choices to pursue their dreams at all costs and to raise a child and start a family that absolutely changes so many other people's lives exponentially more than you'll ever know from the time that you commit to doing that.
You have broken the stereotypical beliefs of single motherhood. Let me just say that. You have broken every chain for us as single mothers raising boys, 9 to 5 single working mothers, because you are a working mom. I hear you say that you were once a realtor before you became a success coach.
Yes, I still am, but
Okay.
I have changed my entire focus to this coaching. And yes, I do life coaching as well, success
Uh-huh.
coaching around life issues, but I have this incredible small niche passion project, which is the open adoption success coaching.
So, how have parenting changed your trajectory of your career?
Well, I grew up in a household where my mother had to work 9 to 5, right? There was
Right.
no choice. She was single. There was no one else providing money. So she worked hard and she also put herself through school. She started out with an associate's degree. And by the time I was in my 20s, she had a philosophy, a PhD in divinity,
You go,
right? Just
mother.
right.
Yeah.
And so I had that as a model. So I have always aspired. I love education. I love learning. And I got my MBA at 21 many, many moons ago. And I always followed my passion. So my passion was acting. I went into acting. I did that and I went to real estate. I have to follow that thing that lights me up. And real estate was at a point in my life where I had achieved many goals and I was like, okay,
Right.
I've done that. And so adopting became my new passion because I was able to take something that I've always dreamt of and see I can really help other people with what I've learned over the time. I've had to make hard decisions around my choices as far as with the agencies, what type of child I wanted to have, how I
Mhm.
envisioned myself as a mother,
Mhm.
you know, doing it by myself because both of my parents were gone when they had passed away, an only child. So it wasn't by any stretch of the imagination easy at all. But I
Thank
was
you for
able
saying
to,
that.
yes, and not at all. Some of the most difficult times, but not because of her and not because I was a single mother, but because of not having the support that I needed to manage it all, to work and to be a parent. And I was a, 1099 worker, right, as a realtor.
Mhm.
So there's no check coming every second, every other Friday.
Right.
You have to be hustling the whole time.
Yeah.
And um, so one thing I want to say, and I'll go back to answering your other question, support is so key with having a successful parenting experience, no matter if you're a married couple or you're single, whether you were married and got divorced or you have a baby daddy, whatever, it's still difficult if you want to do it the right way, right?
Yes.
If you want to do it the wrong way and mess it up, that's very easy to do.
Yeah, because I promise you, doing it the wrong way means you're gonna do it by yourself without no one's help.
Right. And no expectations of
Yeah.
what you want for your child and what you aspire for yourself, change of
Yes.
circumstances and situations and all of that. So support is huge, and that's what I do with my coaching and creating a support system, a community of support, so
Mhm.
that when you have those difficult situations, when there's a financial bump in the road, when you are tired and exhausted, your child is sick, all of those things, you have somebody or other people to go, hey, what did you do when this happened? How did you manage this? And then going back to your question, like how did it change my parenting? So my mother had to work
Mhm.
and I had to go to school. She would walk me to school, but I have to walk back or go with another friend home and stuff like
Mhm.
that. I always wanted her to be there, at the school for an event or after school. But real estate was able to allow me to be able to do that, to take her to school, to be back home for school, to plan my day around her schedule, which is always what I wanted. And so, that's what I always say for my clients, right? Most of them in their 40s and 50s have put away enough money. They are in management positions, or maybe, it doesn't management in whatever size company, right? It could
Right.
be at a local company or it could be at Fortune 500, right? But you have management skill levels. If you need to change something about how your career is set up so that you could be the kind of mother that you envisioned, let's
Right.
start having that conversation because
Right.
it may be time for you to change jobs, which some of my clients have done and still been successful.
Your story is touching not only as a Black woman, your story is touching as a single mother who is changing the game and continue to change the game. If you don't mind me asking, how long have you been a mother?
So I just had my 10th anniversary 2 days ago on Christmas Eve.
Happy anniversary. Tell
Thank
your daughter I
you.
said happy birthday.
Exactly. And that's what I was thinking. I was like, oh, it's her birthday, but it's also my
Your
anniversary.
anniversary. I love the fact
Yes.
that you celebrate your journey into
Absolutely.
motherhood. What are some of the things that you set as an example for your daughter to see as far as you being a role model?
Yes. So I was blessed enough to be awarded different awards and go to award shows. I was deemed a power woman in business, and they had this whole red carpet affair. And I took her with me. I brought her a little dress. She
Right.
walked the red carpet with
There
me,
you go.
and she was my date. And people say, "Oh, you brought your daughter?" I'm like,
Yeah.
"Absolutely." I am the real life Barbie for her, right?
Thank you.
There's a doll there. Okay, play with the doll, but I want you to see a Black woman doing it in real life,
Real
and she's your
time.
mother. Yes.
Yes.
So
Yes.
she is now my number one fan, as I am hers, and she loves seeing me up there and doing things, and takes such joy and pride in seeing me, do my thing.
That's good. So, do you think that it's best for our children to get to know us out of parenting as humans instead of just always being in mothering mode?
I love that question. I really love that question. It goes to something I was thinking about the other day, and it's going to be quite controversial in
Mhm.
saying this, but I thought about the whole Santa Claus and Tooth Fairy thing, and
Go ahead.
I bought into it and I did it, and it's fun to see their joy for this made up
Yeah.
character, but it's an instance where you are setting the tone for lying to your child.
Yeah.
And that's not healthy,
At all.
right? And if that is their first, one of the major first constructions that you create for them, and you have bought into this society positioning of this person that doesn't exist, that is taking the claim for you,
Yeah.
it's not just, doing it for their benefit, for their fun. What does it say for our relationship with them going forward
Mhm.
when a lie is continued over and over and
To be
over for
told.
years?
Yes.
Yes, and it struck me one time, my daughter wrote this letter to the tooth fairy. She was sleeping in my bed that night. She wrote a letter to the tooth fairy saying, letting her know exactly where she was, but like she's like, I'm not in my bed tonight, but you can leave my money. Yes, and then, who keeps cash anymore? I was like, I don't even have cash to put this thing, to keep this lie
Hey.
going. And then one time she said to me, I forget what she said, but she said, Mama, I know it's you, but so why didn't you put the money there? And I was like, I said, how long have you known? She goes, I've known for a long time. And so right, then that means that we are encouraging them to play along. And so I
Mm.
really believe in honesty, setting
Right.
that as a foundation in the family home, right? Not only do we talk the truth, we have hard conversations, we acknowledge each other's emotions and feelings. We're
Mhm.
not going to be in the best of moods all the time. But the first thing I need to say to you is, I'm not going to lie to you.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie to you about how our family came into being.
Mhm.
I'm not going to lie to you and say that I pushed you out when I didn't.
Yes.
I'm not going to co opt other people to lie with me about how you came into my life.
Right.
And for what? For whose mental benefit? Right? I'm not going to make up stories about the woman who placed you in my care out of love
Yeah.
and demonize her. I'm not going to do any of that. We're going to work from a place of love and grace, and that's the foundation of my family unit.
Wow. I love that. For me, one thing that I have been working on as a mother is letting myself know, but also let my kids know this is who I am away from parenting. I love to work out. I love to read. I love to dance. I love to have fun. Remember other things about me other than just me being your mom.
Absolutely. That is
I
so
want
important.
I want you to see me as, okay, she's my mom, but she's a person who also loves things that she loves to do. She loves to do this, she loves to do that. Then when it comes to parenting, okay, she's my mother, but she gives me advice. And it's up to me as her child to apply those advice that I think will be helpful to the areas that I need to apply them.
Yes, absolutely. And building on that,
Yeah,
I'd say that there are so many parents, mothers, fathers who are breaking their neck to provide an experience for their child that one they either can't afford, they don't have the time for,
yes,
it's not necessary for their growth at this particular moment. It's okay to say no. It's okay that the child doesn't have everything. They don't need to know every crook and cranny of your financial life,
right.
but they do need to know that's expensive and we can't do that right now. We can
Not
work
right now.
towards it, we
Right.
can set a goal, but I think also we can't make the mistake of making children adults in our lives.
Yes.
They are children. They just got here. They do not know what's best for them.
No.
They do not know what's best for me. They do not know what's best for our family. They do not know what I've had to sacrifice. So you have to be the person as the parent to help guide them in understanding and accepting what it is that you put forth as what's going to happen and what's not going to happen, what will happen later.
I love that. That was a whole power statement because a lot of parents, I feel that the reason why parents, well, single parents, some of us do it, is because we lack the ability or we lack the awareness of boundaries. We don't have boundaries for ourselves, so we lack that awareness to set boundaries for our children. And when we don't have boundaries set for ourselves, how can we set those boundaries for our children? For example, we are at work late. It's okay to grind as a parent because you're the sole provider, God first. Yeah, and you're in the home. But if you lack that boundary to set and tell your boss, whoever, whatever company that you work for, hey, this is the time I'm going to work for you. This is the time that you asked me to work. I understand that we have this and that going on, but this is what I can give you
Yes,
now. So I have to set this boundary for my job, go home, set that boundary for my kid. I'm spending time with you guys. I'm doing this for you. It's a personal sacrifice as a parent. And don't hold your children to it because it's not going to be reciprocated. This
right,
is not I give, you give back. No.
right.
And when a parent understands that concept of setting boundaries, they're able to tell their children, this is expensive right now. We cannot afford it right now. I'm not saying that we cannot get it in the future, but I want you to understand that mommy has to work to provide. So
Absolutely.
I'm not going to overly compensate to make you believe that you can always have it when you want it.
Right.
It's called tough parenting or gentle parenting or whatever it's called, but a parent is a
It's
parent. Just
called
yeah, like just
good
be real with
parenting.
yeah, it's yeah, good parenting. Like just be real with your children.
Right.
Yeah, and set boundaries and let them know we have it today, we don't have it tomorrow. I'm not saying that we
Right.
don't have it at all, but we will get it when the time is right.
Absolutely. And there are activities that I would absolutely love her to do. There's just not enough hours in the day for it to happen.
Right.
So we'll have to figure out how to make it happen over breaks or summer.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's there doesn't need to be guilt around your decisions
No. So
that protect your sanity.
I was just about to say. So speaking of guilt, have you ever felt any form of parental guilt?
Of course. Who
Okay.
wouldn't? Of course.
How does that feel
Absolutely.
like for you?
You know what? Sometimes I'm like, "Oh, I should not say that or I shouldn't do that because her feelings will be hurt." And I'm like, "Wait a minute. if there is a disrespect happening, there's a talking back, or there's a behavior that I don't want to have reinforced, and I may have been harsh in my response to get her attention,
Mhm.
and then she might cry because it's jolting and it wasn't expected. Yes, I've totally felt guilty. But then I go, wait a minute. This behavior was not something that I want to see again, nor reinforce. And I do believe that there are certain things that we experience later on as parents with our children
Mhm.
that could have been totally cut off at the pass
Mhm.
years ago when
Yeah.
the first thing started happening, right?
Yes.
Because the first thing leads to the next and it escalates, escalates, escalates.
And
And
it
then you
builds
go,
up.
how did this happen? Where did this monster of a child come from? Well, when she was 5, you failed to do X, Y, and
And
Z and
see.
correct that behavior.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of parents don't want to take on the guilt of, oh, I should have done that. I messed up there. I missed an opportunity. And it's okay. It's not to point fingers. It's just to go, okay, what can I learn from it? I've learned from strangers that I've observed. And wow, that sounded harsh to me, but I'm looking at the kid. He seems to be okay with it. For instance, my daughter was very, very young. We went to maybe 2 or 3. We went to a children's museum,
Mhm.
and there was an older kid, maybe he was 7 or 8, and he was building or painting something. And the mother said, actually, you can do a lot better. This wasn't your best work. And I was like, oh, that's so harsh. Why would she say something like that? Right. And years later, I thought about that, right? You know how we go, that painting, it looks like a blob. You're like, oh, that's so amazing.
Lying. Being so dishonest.
Right. And she obviously knows what he can do,
Yeah.
right? For her to say that. And I think it's okay for us as parents to go, you know what? That's very nice. However, I've seen you do better. And did you think about using this color, or, you know, you could stay within the line, just little
Yeah.
things. We can't give kids passes all the time,
Not all the
you know.
time.
Not all the time, right? You're
Not
not
all the
going to be a
time.
dictator, but you
Yeah.
do need to know when your child can do better and encourage them to do better, and
So
not
so how is your parental expectations?
respectful. I expect
Okay.
my daughter to be respectful. I expect her to do her chores, and she does. She washes dishes. She's 10 now. She washes dishes. We have a no shoe household. She's in charge of putting the shoes back once we take them off when we come in. She's responsible for her bathroom, keeping it clean, and her bedroom. Doesn't always happen, but I will be like, okay, please get that bathroom.
Real quick.
Please hang up this, right? But yes, I mean, I it starts with respect and love, and we have this thing that we have reinstituted. I had discovered it, I don't even know where, but it turned out to be this incredible experience for us. And someone who from our church reminded me of that post I had done about it. And she said, do you still do that? And I was like, no, we haven't done that in a long time. And it was giving 5 hugs a day to your child. And when we were doing it, there was less bickering and less. And when you realize, when you hug somebody and you just stop and pause, it forces you to take a deep breath and to
Yes.
exhale slowly. It calms your body, your blood pressure down, your heart rate goes down, and you're just holding. And every time, for me, it was like an exhale, like, oh
Yeah.
my gosh, I feel so much better.
Yeah.
For her, it brought life to her. She got giddy and laughing and girly and very open to suggestion of doing this. Can you do that? Do that. And so we may not always get up to 5. We usually get up to like 3, and I'll say, how many hugs has that been today? And she'll like 2. I'm like, all right, we got to go for 3 at least.
Yeah.
Right. It is a game changer. If I can leave anything with your viewers and your
Mhm.
listeners, is to implement that into your household,
Most
no matter how old your child is, right? And they might be, oh, mom, but I also had to, all of a sudden she was like limp hugging. I was like, no, no, no. I'm not letting go
like
until
give
you
it
put
to
your
me, like
arms
give
around. Right. So we also teach them how to show affection, right? Healthy affection. It's okay to hug somebody. It's okay to love another
Yeah,
human being and have human touch, right? Obviously, it's got to be the right person by
right.
consent and all that. But it is changed our household so profoundly.
That's good. So when you talk of when you speak of giving hugs, is there a certain time frame in the day that you guys meet? Is it before school, after school? Like, like what are the best time of the day to give hugs?
Right. I mean, I think that's going to be different with each family.
Mhm.
Right. In the morning, we tend to be like, I mean, and I homeschool. So even with homeschooling, it's like, okay, go, go, go. But, it's in the passing, you're like, wait a minute, hold on. We're not going to just pass each other as we're walking by. Let's just stop and give a hug. So if you can, absolutely, before you walk out that door, couple it with a prayer. Pray
Mm,
over your child for their protection and have a good day at school and pray for their teachers. So you can do it then. You can obviously do it when you pick them up from school. You can do it, in the evening before bed. That's
mhm.
up to 3 right there. And then wherever else you squeeze in two more. But if you can get to 3, 2 is good, but 3 is really great and
Yeah,
5 is phenomenal.
yeah,
But
I'm gonna
and you
try.
will see
I'm
a
gonna
change.
try, see, with my boys, because I have one home and one is not home with me. They
Right.
live on his own. So I'm gonna try implementing these hugs. Well, with my oldest, when we see each other, we always hug whenever we're done with our, mommy and son's date.
Right.
For my youngest, it's like, why are you hugging me?
Right. Right. But that's what getting him used to it, getting
Yeah,
him used to it slowly and saying it's okay for a mommy to hug.
yeah,
And remind them when they were babies that you hug them all the
all the
time.
time,
They hugged you all the time.
all
So
the
when did
time.
this stop?
Yeah,
Why did it stop? Who
stop,
said it had to stop?
stop.
Right?
Right,
And
and
even
how
with your
important it
older son,
is.
so
Yeah,
important. It physically lowers your heart rate. It calms you down. It will change your breathing.
yeah,
And I say hold it for, don't go and that's be done.
right.
Hold it for at least 2 breaths,
Yeah,
2 deep breaths. And with your son, they generally tend to be a little bit
yeah,
more
because
open.
he's 15, but he's almost like 6'1". So it's
Right,
like a big little man hugging me.
right, right,
But when I hug him, and I can tell that he's so uncomfortable. Like my mommy is squeezing me, but yeah, but I'm hugging you. I
right,
need the
right,
same back. Yeah.
right. And I think it also lends itself to what it is to have affection from
Mhm.
the right person. Because if you're not hugging them at home, they'll seek that. They still have a craving for it. They
Yeah.
don't realize it, but they have a craving for it. And then they'll seek it elsewhere in the
Elsewhere
wrong person, in
at
the
the
wrong
wrong place.
circumstances.
Yes.
Right. So you are their teacher in how to emotionally connect to somebody. And you'll watch and see how different conversations will come out of that right
Hmm.
afterwards. That's your time to have a nice
And now,
conversation.
see, in my home with my 15-year-old, with my oldest, so it's like we have this open communication, but with boundaries.
Hmm. Yeah.
Tell me how you feel, but speak to me with respect.
Right.
I'll tell you how I feel, but I also will acknowledge your emotions and speak to you with respect.
Right.
And I love that for my home because my youngest, saying the relationship that me and my oldest have cultivated, like he comes to me now because at first he's like this shy kid. And I was taking him to school, I think it was last week. I was taking him to school and I'm like, do you think I judge you? He said, no, mommy, why'd you say that? I said, oh, I'm just curious. I just want to know. And I also asked him, I said, do you think I create a safe space that you can always come and talk to me and know that I'm not going to judge you? He said yes and then no. And I was curious to know why he said no. And I'm like, okay. So why'd you say no? He said, no, I'm saying no because It's me. So I said, what about you? He said, no, you always open a safe space for me to come and talk to you. But in my mind, I'm glad that he took responsibility, like he was accountable. And he said, in my mind, I feel that when I tell you things, maybe you're going to judge me, but you've never judged me before. And I was like, oh, and I would never judge you because I'm not perfect.
Right.
And I want to create this space that you can always come and talk to me. And I don't want you to go out there seeking validation from others when you can validate yourself. Make sure what you're saying is true. Make sure your goals are attainable by just putting in little actions towards your goal and validating yourself. I can only give you advice, but it's up to
Right.
you to take them. And when I said that, his whole attitude and openness to my suggestion has been totally different.
Right.
So my question to you is, how have your parenting journey been? Has it been any difficult when it comes to as far as like communicating with your daughter, or some, form of, backlash, like, okay, I hear you, but then again I don't?
Right. I think she never went through the terrible twos or anything like that.
Hmm.
I think 5 was the age I was like, what's going on? She was very, it didn't happen
You are
earlier.
built for this, ma'am.
I was like, what is with 5? No one said anything about 5. Okay,
Right.
I was expecting 2 and 3.
Hmm.
But then she went through it, and I don't even remember what it was, but I just remember that it wasn't fun. Like her attitude was like, eh. But now at 10, the only issues are anything that's coming from the internet, right? Social
Hmm.
media. And I'm really trying to monitor that and cut back on that. I want her to have some access because she has to because of homeschooling,
Hmm.
but I don't want other people raising my child, right? Other
Hmm.
people influencing them. And I
Yeah.
see it, with, you know, not just her, but her whole that age group is so into skincare
Yeah.
and what they're putting on their skin, and they have a skin routine, and I'm like, wait a minute.
At
Okay.
age 10,
Yes,
your collagen level is so high. Like, girl,
exactly.
don't
Right.
you should not even
But
be worried
this
about
is
a line.
right. But they're watching all these influencers who are older than them. And you know how we were when we were younger. We
Yes.
we looked up to the older girls and stuff like that. So the thing that is the biggest thing at this stage is managing other people's voices
Hmm.
in her ears. That is what I am really cognizant of.
Yeah.
She has a great social group. She's got great extracurricular activities. So that's the only thing that I'm like has to really be watched. And when I have gotten advice from other parents whose children, whose girls especially are older,
Hmm.
they say if I had the choice to do it all again, I would never allow my child to be on social media. That I mean, and they're like not even a little. They are in the thick of it with
Mm.
teenage girls and older who have changed so much from the little girl that they were. And so I think for any of us raising girls especially,
Hmm.
talk to about boys, we have to really watch what they're watching and listening to. I
Hmm.
guess for boys, it's all about violence and killing and
Yes.
these games and stuff like that. It's so I watched. I was at a party and I watched this little boy play with WWE thing, and it was so violent. He was like 6 or so. It doesn't even phase them. They don't even know what it is to be hurt, to die, to
Hmm.
So why should they be playing games like this?
Yeah.
We have to This is an old conversation in that, right, we can't allow video games and all those type of things
Hmm.
affect our child's personalities. That's what we're seeing. Even in church, I'm like, every kid is on a device. right? We are not empowering these children to sit through something that may be boring for them,
Right.
that may not be at their level, but you
Yes.
have to figure it out like we
Figure it
did.
out. Figure
We're
it
not,
out.
we are pacifying this next generation,
Yeah.
and they cannot be pacified because what's coming down the line is not playful.
It's
It's
not.
hard, it's harsh. So
It's
I keep
not.
saying, like, encouraging, and it's part of our society right now with
Mhm.
this whole video thing, but we got to get these kids off of them because it's a harsh word, dumbing them down, pacifying them to a place of complacency.
Mhm.
We have got to take control and empower our kids to sit in silence,
Yes.
to sit in uncomfortableness, to sit
Yes.
in being bored. And my daughter sometimes will
And
say, "Well,
process your thoughts instead of
yes,
trying to get out of reality
yes,
and distract yourself into something that is not even real.
right, absolutely." And we go, "Oh, it's just fun for them. It's okay for them to be
No.
distracted." You are teaching your child how not to be able to be hired because they constantly need stimulation. They can't
All
even
the
sit in
time.
class, right? And so my daughter will say, "Mom, I'm bored." I said, "Well, only boring people are bored. Only boring people get bored."
Yeah. Love that. I'd be like, my son would sound bored. I'm like, okay, so you have the book,
Hmm.
you have your Scrabble, whatever it's called. You can go play some word games,
Yep.
enhance your vocabulary. We can talk. We can play cards. We can do too many things together. We can work
Right.
out together. My suggestions sometimes are still boring.
Right. Exactly.
Yes, they're still boring. But I love what you said when you said, I don't want other people raising my child. Being in my child's head, that is powerful. I want us to talk about that more. When it comes to a single parent, sometimes we need the support. Sometimes, let me take that back, correct myself. We need the support all the time, right?
Right. Yes.
So when we give our children to other parents, meaning they have another child that they're going over to, and this family household is not a single parent family household. They have mom and they have dads,
Right.
right? And so your child see the affection from that other family, and they will bring that home at times and question you.
Hmm.
I've had this happen to me hands down.
Right.
I was working and my son came. Well, he asked me to spend a night. And I'm like, oh my God, I've never done this before. My nerve was all over the place. In my head, I'm like, okay, what is this man gonna look at my child as? You know, what is the mom? It's like the thoughts in my head. Like I had to calm them down, like quiet them down. And so my son went over there, he had a blast. And he came back, and the very first thing he said to me was, Mommy, how come I don't have a cell phone? And I'm like, what? I heard him the first time. I thought, what are you talking about? I have a cell phone. You don't need a cell phone. Oh, yes, I do. My friend, this and this, have a cell phone. And when they go to school, their mom call them sometime to check on them. And I'm like, oh my God, the pressure is on.
Yes.
And,
Well,
and it's like in my head, I'm like, should I get this kid a cell phone?
right. And I say, my daughters ask me the same thing. I was like, why? What do you need a cell phone for? Who are you going to call?
Oh, right.
Right. You're with me most of the time because we homeschool, which goes to your point about who's teaching my child.
Yeah.
Right. So I took that back. I'm like, I'm teaching you. I'm going to teach
Right.
you history that you're not going to learn
Yeah.
and different things. But I am the same way. I mean, have said to my daughter, I don't sleep well when you're not in the house. I absolutely have my worst nights when you're not there. So I can't do it. It just doesn't. I mean, there's one or two for her godparents, family members, obviously grandma. It's one set of families that she has slept over there. And even at that, I was like sick to my stomach. Did I make the right decision? No.
Right?
So I'm like, I'm not putting myself through this.
It's hard.
And it's okay, right? They can have even a late play date and I'll come pick you up. And it's not to say that having a night to myself wouldn't be amazing,
Yeah.
but for me, it's not worth the anxiety.
Yeah.
And, is she okay? Yeah, I understand. So, I mean, it absolutely has to be people that you trust and that have the
Yeah.
same, even if people who you love, they just may not have the same way of raising a child, right? I have a family member who took her and they for the afternoon, they eat McDonald's. I don't eat McDonald's. I don't eat fast food. I don't feed her that stuff. And, but their way of showing love and affection is how he experienced it as a child. We all went to McDonald's back in the day, right? And we ate a ton of candy. So, and it's like, okay, I appreciate where the love was coming from, but this is actually not good for her. And I don't feed her that. So please don't feed her that. And I think it's okay for us as parents, and this is how you make your decision as well, if they're going to be at another household without being like, you could never have McDonald's ever in your life.
Yeah.
It's like, this is what I don't feed my child. I really like her not to have X, Y,
Yeah.
and Z. Can you ensure that so that they know and they can't say that, oh, you never told me. I'm so sorry. If you had told me, I would have
I
been
would have
able
done it.
to accommodate. Right. So you just get it out the way at the beginning. And it's that hard conversation again to have.
Yeah.
Like, who's in your household? Who's sleeping over? Is there another
Mm-hmm.
male? You know,
Mm.
how old are the brothers? All of these things. And that for that matter, how old are the sisters? So you don't know these days. You just don't know.
You just don't know. But ladies and gentlemen, I am so happy. Say your name again for me before I butcher.
Io Haynes.
Io Hands. Here you have it from Miss Aya Hands and your host, Miss Wedeh Guar. Thank you guys for sticking around with us. I promise you the title of this episode, and the title of this episode is Breaking Stereotypical Boundaries as Single Mothers. Again, there is no hood like a single parent hood. Miss Aya is going to be here with us. But with that being said, love yourself the best way you know how and have you a good day and be blessed.